Some people are in the comments, aren't they? Yeah, did you see the signs that we have around here asking people to wear masks and everything?
Is that for like parents or everyone?
It's for everybody.
I saw that Mrs. Gray's is mask required.
Yeah, and
And
ours,
then I saw 5 people walking in that class without masks.
well, it's, we put those up for parents. I mean, I think you guys know that that's what we prefer, but we put those up for parents tonight to come into conferences. So I think what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna have parents sit here and we'll kind of still distance, but wear our masks. Yeah,
There you go.
exactly.
Paper airplane, like.
Yeah, really. I should wear gloves. Yeah, do you really want to touch this paper that I just touched? Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be a new thing, and we're gonna put. We're gonna have our doors open, and we are gonna have chairs out there so people can wait while they're waiting. So I have had parent-teacher conferences in my classroom only one time, and that was when I was student teaching at Yankton High, and it was fine. I've usually had them in a big gym. That's what I had in Kansas, and you know that's what we have here. So it'll be just a little bit different.
I mean, it's easier to not have to haul all your stuff out.
That's true too. And I'll probably sit in a teacher or a kid desk, which is fine with me, and I'll just have my stuff propped over here. I'm used to having a big table. But yeah, it'll be different. And I guess they're gonna deliver food to us about 4:30, which I'm one of those teachers that always has a lot of people waiting to talk to me. So a lot of times I actually don't get a supper break, so it'll be kind of nice to have supper brought to me, and hopefully I'll get a chance to eat it before 8 o'clock. That probably won't happen, but anyway, my big question for you before we start is it's actually a suggestion, and I want to ask your input because I usually have pretty good consensus. Every year that my students have turned in the final draft of their research paper, on the day it's due, which would be tomorrow, I've always had a reward with some sort of ice cream party. Okay, and it has always been, this mask is too small, it's the same one I had last week. It's always been root beer floats. How do you guys feel about root beer floats? Yes? Yes? If you don't like root beer floats, is there another flavor of pop that you would prefer? I had one request one year and I granted that request. Okay, root beer floats for the majority, you don't have to have I'll bring, I'm not gonna bring a whole bunch of different kinds of ice cream, but I will bring vanilla ice cream. And I'll bring root beer, any other requests for a different type of pop? Yes? Orange soda. Okay, I'll bring orange soda. Hopefully I'll remember to bring orange soda, but yeah, does that sound like fun? Kids always have a tendency to like that. And I think there's no one in the commons from 11 to about 11:20, correct? So we'll probably come down here, meet here, and then we'll just go down there, have our root beer floats, and then we'll come back. Okay, everybody's here tomorrow? Yes, we don't have any, what days are golfers gone this week? Thursday, okay, so we'll have, and I was kind of thinking about what we're gonna do beyond this. Tomorrow we'll have our root beer floats, and that'll take half of our class period. And then I'm gonna introduce you to something new, and it'll be something that'll be light and fluffy and not a research paper. I mean, is that okay? I don't know if writing can be light and fluffy, but I want to do something just a little bit more fun for a little while so we don't all have to be, so glued to our computer screens for a while. So hopefully that's fine with you. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is that we will have just a half a class period tomorrow. Our class period Wednesday will be full, and then golfers will be gone Thursday. But starting next week, we have back to our regular schedule pretty much. Do those of you that go to work-based learning on Fridays, do you not have that this week, or do you choose to go if you would like? Or you can if you want to. And
if your classes at Northeast,
they're still on. That's what I was gonna ask you, so some of you will be having that. You know what I heard, and I heard this on the radio, I heard that there are certain programs right now that Northeast is offering scholarships for that are in high need right now as far as job-wise goes, that you can apply for scholarships for, it made it sound like full tuition. Have you guys heard about that? Yeah? the reason I heard about it is I think they extended the scholarship application deadline to the end of October, which made me think that they must not be getting a lot of applicants. So I don't know if that applies to part-time students or not, but it might be something you guys could look into. But I was thinking about, people that might be underemployed. That means adults that might be underemployed and might want to pick up some skills. Maybe I thought of your CNA class and everything. It might be a good opportunity for people who would like to get some college credit. So I think that's awesome that that's being offered. So again, is the freaking out over, or do we have some of you that are still just a little bit worried about what has to happen between today and 24 hours from today? Residual freak out, I like that term. Did you all see my comments and the grades that I put in yesterday? Yeah, I worked on that. I think I started about 5:30 and I got done about 8 o'clock. And I didn't write a lot of comments, but if I happened to notice that you didn't have very many citations, or if I happened to notice just in glancing at some things, some organizational issues, I might have put a comment on your paper about that. So if you have not looked at my comments from yesterday, or if you hadn't looked at the rubric, hadn't looked into Power School, make sure you do that. But what I want to spend time doing today is at the end, we'll ask specific questions. But I also wanted to spend some time showing you a paper and going through that and kind of doing a group edit so you can earn the most points possible. And I can usually end up pointing out some things that you might not have thought about that'll help you earn some more points. So what I would ask you to do is pull up your own paper, okay? And I would also ask you to get out your rubric if you have it. If you have the hard copy of the rubric, I'm gonna ask you for it before you leave. That way I don't have to make more photocopies. If you wanna keep it, if you've already written on it and everything, that's fine. But as I'm getting everything organized up top, I would love for you to look at everything on that, especially on the top part of the rubric, and see if you have any questions. Because I know I wrote some comments yesterday about, in looking at the rubric, I'm not sure that you're gonna be able to earn full points because of your lack of whatever you had the lack of at the time. So you might wanna look at that. And I'm gonna pull up the only copy of an MLA essay that I have, because I've never had a student write an MLA essay, and I'm gonna share Wyatt's with you. And his is kind of long, but that's okay.
Do you have any more hard copies?
Ooh, I might. Let me look. Usually make a couple extra. Let's see. Relax, was that okay? Leave that off. You see that off? Anybody else? You're welcome. Happy to see you live as opposed to virtual. Happy to be back.
Yes.
Like relieved to be able to be here, sort of. Yes. Sorry I didn't greet you earlier. Anybody else? Okay. So what we're doing here today is for the good of the cause, and I want you to have your paper as clean as it can be. And I heard some of you saying that you've had somebody look at your paper, you've had peers edit it, you've had other people edit. That's totally, totally wonderful, okay? Let me just tell you one pet peeve of mine. And one pet peeve of mine is when I make a suggestion to a student on a portion of a rough draft, and that suggestion doesn't get adopted, or it gets blown off, or the changes never get made all the way through the final draft. So if I've been warning you or letting you know that you've had a mistake since early in the paper and that mistake is still there at the very end, it just annoys me. So it makes me feel like my work is going unnoticed, and I don't think that you intentionally do that, but what I might do if I were you is maybe go through what you've submitted to me and look at my comments and make sure that you've been taking care of business that way. Let's just start on page 1 and make sure, because I made this comment a lot yesterday, make sure that you are like Wyatt in that your font matches all the way through your paper, okay? Whatever font he used here, I know he used Microsoft Word, his header font and size matches the entire rest of his paper. And you can't tell it, because I have it blown up too big, but that header is a 1/2 inch from the top of the page, and it needs to be a 1/2 inch from the top of the page, and the margins on the side need to be 1 inch. And everything, you'll notice everything here is double spaced. That's Wyatt's name, his instructor's name, the course name, and the date that it was due. So if you want to put tomorrow's date, which is September, 29th, you can put that as your date. Looking at your title, do not bold your title. We'll learn how to do bolding when it comes to headers and titles when we do APA, but nothing is bolded, and your main words need to be capitalized. Don't capitalize any articles. You can capitalize the if it's at the beginning of your title, and also make your title specific enough to give your reader an idea of what your paper truly is going to be about. All right, moving down here, I'm not going to read Wyatt's paper to you, but we know it's about climate change. And you can see that he doesn't have any citations in his first paragraph, which is fairly typical. If you have a citation in your first paragraph, that's fine, some of you might. But we're going to talk about citations just a little bit later. Make sure, and if you look at your rubric, make sure that you can look at your first paragraph of your paper and pick out your thesis. Okay? Read your thesis through and make sure that it's clear. Wyatt's was a persuasive paper, so he has a persuasive thesis. He says, whether one believes in climate change or not, it is important for each of us to research and understand what is happening with climate change, because if we rely on the media, we may be receiving cherry-picked information instead of the full interpretation of the data. So his is persuasive, but it's still a thesis statement. All right, so he's starting here, and I want to talk about citations, and if you have questions about citation, today is definitely the day to ask them, because if you look down at the MLA portion of your paper, you're going to see that citations, actually in the top and the bottom, you're going to see that they're important. And I just kind of looked through Wyatt's paper to see if it would be a good teaching tool, and I think it's going to. So I remember saying to you the other day, and I'll remind you of this, that whatever is in the parentheses in your paragraph needs to be the first part of the citation in your works cited. So Wyatt's starts with global. So I'm gonna, and global is in italic, so it almost makes me wonder if it's a book, but I'm not sure, so we'll go down here and we'll see how long this paper had to be. Yeah, you guys are lucky, yours was only 4 pages. Go down to global, and this came from NASA. I'm not sure if it was a pamphlet or something, but this shows you that you can abbreviate your sources just a little bit. He could have put global climate change here, but his instructor probably told him that it was okay to abbreviate it to global. You could do that. I've talked to several of you about it. If you have a long article title, you can cut it down. So it's from global climate change. So that citation happened early in his paper, but I just want to go through and look at some other citations, and you guys can see if you have something similar. Leffler is the citation that he has here, so we're gonna go down and see who Leffler is. And Leffler is a professor at South Dakota State, and Wyatt quoted from his lecture, so that might be something that you'll have to do as well. Notice here that while we're at our works cited page, let's just go ahead and look at it. Wyatt has every one of his citations in alphabetical order. Okay, so the first one had 2 authors, okay, and it's a New York Times article. Second one came from the CNN website in 2017. The next one came from Fox News. And he's talking about opinion, so it's okay that this was an opinion piece here. And he goes all the way down, and he has all of his sources in alphabetical order, so make sure that you're doing that. The other thing that you'll notice is that everything is double spaced. There are no extra spaces between paragraphs. And you'll also note that every paragraph or every line on the bottom of each page goes down to that 1-inch margin. There's an inch here, an inch here, an inch here, and then the header is a 1/2 inch. Okay, so make sure that all of your pages are full pages. The other thing, and I noticed this on a couple of your headers early in the process, notice that his header is flush, that 3 is flush with the right margin there, and there's a space between his name and the page number. That's something that kids have a hard time with sometimes. Again, everything's double spaced up here. Transitions. Okay, actually, let's look at, I'm not gonna read this all. I made a comment or two last night on the length of your paragraphs, okay? And I don't know who was in class and who wasn't the day we talked about the fact that most likely as you move into college, you will not be asked to write your traditional 5-paragraph essay that has been drilled into your head ever since you were probably in elementary school. Okay, your research papers obviously are gonna have to be longer than 5 paragraphs to fill 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 pages. Okay, so what I tell kids is even with you're in the middle of one main point, okay, it's okay to make sure that if there's a natural place for a paragraph break, go ahead and make that paragraph break, because if you have one paragraph that's a whole page long, it's brutal for people who are trying to read that. So you're trying, if there's a logical transition in the middle of a main point, it's okay to make a paragraph. If you look at Wyatt here, that's a longer paragraph, that's a little bit longer, but notice that they aren't usually more than about a 1/2 page. That one got a little bit long. But make sure that you know that it's okay to have more paragraph breaks than you've been accustomed to having previously in your classes. I wish I had more than one sample to look at. I don't have more than one sample. But what I want to do is talk to you guys and see if you have any specific questions about anything that is on a rubric, and I think I'll go through it with you, okay? Your introduction, okay? I used to have introduction and conclusion on the same line, but I broke that up just a little bit because I think that kids have a tendency sometimes to be so tired of their paper that by the time they get to the end, their conclusion is usually not very good. Okay? If your introduction, make sure it's organized, that it's interesting, all right, and that you have a thesis there. And if you skip down past the next one, it says conclusion, make sure that in your conclusion that you haven't added any new info that's off topic of what you've already been talking about, and that you have your thesis in your conclusion as well, and that it's rephrased just a little bit. Okay? Also remember what we talked about in your conclusion is in a goal of a research report is to go seek out information and form thoughts in your own brain as you synthesize all this information, if you've formed some opinion about this topic, it's okay to express that, to put your personal thoughts into your conclusion. So you could say something in your conclusion such as, after researching this topic, I have become more comfortable with the process of such and such, or in researching this topic, I thought I knew a lot about. I'm not phrasing off the top of my head very well, but it's okay to say something like, I went into the research for this topic with one thought about it, but after researching, it has become apparent to me that this. Okay, that might be one thing you could put in your conclusion. Your organization of your main points of your paper. That's huge, okay? You guys have been taught how to write an organized paragraph, again, since you were young. So you have to make sure that everything in every paragraph relates to the topic sentence of that paragraph. So don't be jumping around within your paragraphs. Topic sentences and transitions within sections. Again, I think you know what that is, but like I said, each paragraph has to flow logically. This is where you might lose some points if you're having a hard time with length and support for your thesis. Content, details, length, and support for your thesis. If your paper's short, this is where you're gonna lose points, okay? You have to everything always goes back to your thesis, and your thesis needs to be specific enough so that everything within your paper can relate back to it. So make sure that everything does relate back to it. Use of language. And this is something that you could probably search for. And if you want to take a little bit of time to do this, kids have fun with it, sort of, but then it kind of freaks them out too. Who has a word that they feel like they have used excessively in their paper? When distracted driving, okay?
Or just like anything that's like road or distractions or precautions.
Okay, if you have a word that you feel like you have overused, what you can do is hit Control F, okay, and type that word in there and see how many times it pops up in your paper. Does anybody have anything? You have pond life in there quite a bit?
Pond is used 52 times.
Yeah, so did you see my note yesterday? Yeah.
I guess I
It's pretty
didn't use it
February.
as much as I thought I did. Yeah, me too.
Good, it might make you feel good, okay? You don't, I think what you need to think of if you have words that are using excessively is think about rephrasing a sentence so you can eliminate the word. Because there's only so many synonyms. I mean, are there? Did I ask you that, Justin? Are there bodies of water?
I tried using I use the thesaurus a lot too.
Of
when I'm
course,
writing.
yes, which I'm glad you do.
That helps a lot.
Yeah, well, did you come up with synonyms for pond life?
I kind of just I gotta look at it. I do it a specific way. I avoid using the phrase pond life as much as I can.
Yeah, but 52 times in 4 pages.
Well, some of that's on works cited too, because it's an
Sure,
article
sure,
title and
sure,
stuff like
but-
that.
Yeah, anybody else? The other thing I would do is I would check to see if you have you in your paper. Because you shouldn't, correct?
Ooh.
Okay, but it might be appropriate once.
Any way you look at it, antibiotics keep our bodies safe from infections by lending a helping hand to our immune systems.
I think it's fun.
Is it fine if it's
I like that
in
one.
like intro or conclusion? If
You
you're,
have the
asking a
sentence?
question, yeah.
Any way you look at it, or you're asking a
Yeah.
question? Depends on what you think, yes?
So, I have about 8, like,
You,
I have some like yours and you, but like it's more just kinda like stating what Jane believes. For example, I have, in my, thesis I have, for groundbreaking research in primate animals shed light on evolution and redefined man, and prove to girls anywhere that your gender, and then I have things like is not a barrier you need to break through? Is
You
that,
know, this is a perfect example of how a lot of times, and I want you to look at pronouns, not just you and your, okay? Because kids have a hard time not overusing pronouns. This is a perfect case where I think you can just leave out the word your and it still makes sense. Read the
Yeah.
word gender.
sure,
Yeah.
can say anywhere that gender is not a barrier?
Yeah, you don't have to have your in there all the time. Look at your pronouns. You know your paper better than I do. She, he, they, we. Sometimes you can just eliminate the pronoun and the sentence still makes sense, or you could rephrase it just a little bit and it still makes sense.
That's good. And I still have the you after barrier, so I'm like, is not a barrier you need to break through?
How about a barrier that needs to be broken through?
Right.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I can help you rephrase too if you like.
This might be a stupid question, but like,
Nothing's a stupid question,
it
Stacey.
doesn't matter if it's in, like, you got it from a source, like, I guess, there's a lot of yours and yous, but they're all
Is it a direct quote?
citing, yeah.
If it's a direct quote,
so-
you're okay. Yep, if it's a direct quote, you don't wanna change it. Yep.
I was
figured
kind
it was fine.
James stressed the importance of sharing what you believe in.
I think you can leave that one. Yep, yep, yep. Other things with the word choice. Okay, pronoun use is what kids seem to struggle with the most, just because it's easy to use pronouns. Make sure that you have age-appropriate words in there, as far as make sure you sound like a college student. Does that make sense? Yeah. I'm gonna go on from word choice. That'll be something that you guys can look at as you do your final edit. Tone. I think we talked about tone. Make sure that you sound informative. Okay, you don't wanna be snarky. I'm not saying you can't have any personality in your paper, but you wanna be informative and professional in your tone. Sentence fluency, avoid both choppiness and wordiness. Okay, I'm famous for my combine these sentences comment to you. If you feel that you're repeating words, a lot of times the best way to avoid repetition is to combine. If you have one word at the end of the sentence and you have the same word at the beginning of the next sentence, combine those sentences. Remember how to use semicolons to do that, okay? You don't have to have every sentence to be broken up with a semicolon, but don't feel afraid to use them. Okay, so variety and synthesis of information. Okay, you'll get full points on variety and synthesis of information if you have more than one source quoted in each main point. Okay, if you do not have more than one source quoted, you will not get full points there. Okay, and use of textual evidence and specific details from sources. I was a little concerned last night because I've seen a few papers that have very, very few direct quotes. You have to prove to me that you have gone in and read those sources carefully and found some words that are important enough to transfer over into your own paper. So use of textual evidence and specific details, that refers to direct quotes. Okay, so make sure you have an adequate amount. And I don't know what's adequate, it depends on the paper, but you can't just paraphrase the whole thing. Next is effective use of signal phrases, paraphrasing, and summarizing. Okay, we've talked quite a bit about this, and I'll reiterate to you that if you have a paragraph that is mostly paraphrased, introduce your source at the beginning of that paragraph so we know where it's coming from. And it's even great if you throw a few words directly from that source in there, it's fine. Just cite it accordingly. Okay, we can't have just everything paraphrased. We have to have some specifics from your sources.
So if you introduce it in a segment phrase at the beginning, do you have to
put their name in parentheses?
You do not, that would be redundant, okay, so if you, and that's something too with, your citation, we're almost there, so at some point, for each time you cite your source, you have to have your author or article title and a page number, if there is one. So, and also remember, for each citation, whatever is in parentheses, or whatever's name or article title is in the signal phrase, that has to be the first part of the works cited citation, because that's where I'm gonna go to find it. Did you have a hand up?
I do have a question about
Yep.
them. I have like two authors, it's just two authors, but it's for the same article. How do I do that in the text, like as the in-text citation?
Within the parentheses?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go into your book, it'll tell you how to do, it'll
Okay.
tell you how to do two authors. Anybody remember off the top of your head, for two authors, is it such and somebody, or is it such, comma? I would have to
I
look
think
it
it's
up.
comma.
Is it a comma?
I think it is.
I think Wyatt had one of those actually, and I was kind of surprised that it was a comma. But look at in text. Yeah, he has here Davenport and Lipton. So check and see if that's the way it is.
I think it's like, it's last name, first name.
No, in text.
Then it's-
In text, I know it's just last name.
Alright,
Yep,
And we cited,
Yeah.
the way I did it, that said in the book, it was, the first author's last name, first name, comma, and then you just put the other author's full name.
in the works cited,
Yes.
but we're talking about in text. Did you find it? Okay, so in text documentation, two or more, it's number 5. 2 or more authors.
Last name, comma, last name.
It is example number 5.
So it's last name et al.
2 or more authors, Anderson et al. Yep,
So just,
just like that, and then with the page number. For work with 2 authors, for work with 2 authors, name both, either in a signal phrase or in parentheses. So even with 2 authors, it's et al. I would check all of those before you turn your paper in.
Miss Turner?
Yeah.
I have a question kind of on that too. So I had an article that I found on EBSCO that had like 5 authors.
Yes.
So you just put the first author's name and then et al. and then
In text,
in text.
and then for your works cited, if you have 3 or more authors, number 3 tells you how to do it for your works cited.
Okay, but like number 3 just said to put that and then like the first author's name and then et al. Like
In text.
it also said it was like that too.
It doesn't say it for works
Yeah,
cited?
but I didn't know if it was right. I was kind of.
Let me look at number 3 on page 14. Did we look at that one the other day? 3 or more authors, it says author's last name, first name, et al. Yeah, nice. So for 2 authors, it's different. For 3 or more authors, so for 2 authors or more in text, it's et al. But the works cited is different for 2 authors. The works cited is different for 3 or more authors. So make sure that you're checking these, because I sit there literally with this book open while I'm grading. Okay, so make sure you do it right. Okay, look in your textbook. My rubric, back to my rubric. Okay, so, text evidence, details from sources, signal phrases, paraphrasing, summarize. If I see a lot of, according to such and such in his article titled blah, 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 that's not an effective use of signal phrases, okay? We've talked about that quite a bit. So if you have according to in there a couple times, it's okay, but move beyond that. Think of, there's a lot of sample signal phrases in your textbook that'll help you out, even in that little manual part. Quality and variety of sources. Usually kids do pretty well, get full points here, unless they don't have all the sources that are required, okay? Also, I just thought of something from last night's grading session. Even if you're quoting from an ebook, right, a book that you have electronically, ebooks have page numbers, correct? Because they look just like books, right? So even if you're quoting from an ebook, make sure that you have your page number in there, even if you're paraphrasing, okay? Notice here on your rubric that I literally write your sources in to make sure that you're synthesizing. You have to have more than one source quoted in each main point to receive the full synthesis points. The bottom part, okay, tense, make sure you're not switching tense. That happens on occasion, but I think you guys are advanced enough in your writing skills to make sure that that doesn't happen. Capitalization, that's easy points right there. Punctuation, that's easy points. You get 5 points just for your front page. You get 5 points just for your margins and your spacing. Header, okay, that you get 5 points just for saying Priner space 1. You get 5 points just for that. That's how important it is, okay? That's for your spacing, your placement, your font. In-text citations are present when necessary, so you get dinged on your citations up top, and you get dinged on them down below. That's how important they are, or you earn full points. And then your works cited, this is what's important. This will help you as you are reviewing your works cited for final submission. Need to be in alphabetical order. What needs to be italicized in a works cited citation? Book titles. Yep, newspaper titles, journal titles, website names need to be in italics. Spacing means spacing this way, okay? And it also means spacing with your punctuation as well. Caps, hanging indent, and content, meaning is every part of every citation there. Also, make sure if there's a period, there should be a period at the end of every one, because if it's a URL, you have to have the access date, right? And so a period comes at the end. Make sure you have that access date formatted correctly. Okay?
I was kind of realizing this, and I think I didn't do it last essay too, but I don't have any single phrases. Is that okay? 'Cause I don't know, I just never needed to use them.
You probably won't get full points there if there aren't any signal phrases. You know, I wouldn't revise my whole paper to add a signal phrase,
Well,
but
I'm not gonna lose points, I'll.
yeah, yeah. I would just, the thing with using signal phrases and quotes is like, you want to mix it up. The thing with this paper is, you have to remind people that this is research information. Okay, so even though you might be an expert on the topic, you have to present the information saying, I've researched what this expert has said, okay? And this is what I've found. I've gone out and I've read about this topic, and this is what my sources say, okay? So you can't just, right off the top of your head because you're knowledgeable. If you're knowledgeable about the topic ahead of time, that's fine, but you have to tell us that there's somebody else that knows the same thing as you do, and you went out and found that information, okay? That was a good question. What are you most worried about as you go into this final phase of your essay? Citations, yeah, that's what I would be worried about too. Go into those pages of your book and make sure that they're correct, okay? It tells you exactly how to do it, you just have to choose the right formula.
I have a question about one of my sources. Can you come look at it?
Yeah.
Because I think I put too
I'm gonna
much-
turn this off, Becca.